What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down how quarterbacks can be more accurate on every single pass, okay? So now the first thing that we're going to be covering is the release point, okay? So now the release point ties into everything when it comes to accuracy. It ties into where your release point, where you're going to let go of the ball, if that ball is going to miss left to right based on your front side, or if it's going to miss high and low. So that's the main point of focus. And if you guys have any other video content that you'd like to see, fellas, this video was done by request. So please don't hesitate to leave any suggestions in the comment section below. We always appreciate it, and it's always awesome to hear from you guys. So let's play this thing full speed. So this is a practice rep here from Justin Fields before a game, and we're going to talk about how his release point is able to get to such a clean spot. Now, again, everybody's got a different arm slot. You look at guys like Tom Brady, they have this thing a little bit higher. You look at guys like Aaron Rodgers, they maybe have this thing a little bit lower. Patrick Mahomes. Everybody throws the ball differently. That's what I want to get across. But the key things that you watch all elite quarterbacks that they have in common is going to be this front side, because that affects their accuracy and their head movement. Okay, so now, what so many quarterback coaches have taught in the past is that you want to take your front side and you want to rotate that thing all the way to like 12 o'clock, right? Like your front shoulder's facing 6 o'clock and you want to rotate that front shoulder all the way back to 12 o'clock. Now, the problem with that is you're going to, quote unquote, let your arm fly to the outside. So what does that exactly mean? So your release point, your body is split down a midline, right? Like you could think of it like your spine. You could think of it like you're standing up against a pole, however you want to think of it. But whatever your front side does, that is what's going to affect your release point, and your release point is going to do kind of the opposite, if you will, right? So when you go to rotate through here, you see how Fields, that front hand, see where his front hand is here, you see how it finishes by his face, or kind of like on his collarbone. That's the key spot that we want to get to, because so many guys will bring that front hand over here. They'll bring it all the way to their left shoulder, and their left shoulder will swing open like I was talking about. Now, what that's going to do, because your body's split down a midline, is that when you fly your shoulder open, your arm is going to fly out wide, and that's when quarterbacks will throw across their body. They get a lot of injuries to the front part of their shoulder, and they'll miss the throw if they release it early. They'll miss it to the right. If they release it late, they'll miss way to the left because they're coming across, aka sidearm. That's not when you change up the angle. That's when you throw sidearm. So now, why do quarterbacks miss high and low? Because it's the same thing. What quarterbacks will do is they'll take that front elbow, and instead of swinging open, they'll go from this point right here, and that elbow will swing down. A lot of people used to teach like elbow the midget. That was like the quote-unquote term to help people think about that. And you're right. Swinging your front elbow down will give you power for sure because it's momentum. But guess what your arm's going to do? Because your body's on the midline. Your arm's going to shoot up high. And if you release it really early, you're going to shoot high. If you release it late, you're going to come down like a pitcher and throw that thing in the dirt. So where you want to stay is you want to stay completely parallel to the target with your shoulders and your hips, like you see Fields does right here. And you want to keep that hand somewhere by your face, because that's what will help your arm get to that clean 90-degree position. Now, that doesn't guarantee accuracy. When you get to that 90-degree position, what guarantees accuracy is getting to this spot and flicking that wrist, emphasizing that follow through in the direction of the target. And when you can extend out and snap that wrist at the throw, that's what will help you be more accurate. Okay, so now, why do a lot of quarterbacks swing the front side out of there? And that has a lot to do with the hip rotation. So when a lot of quarterbacks think about this upper body movement right here, they don't have a lot of power on the throw. They feel like they're pushing the throw because they're restricting their front side. You have to combine a disciplined front side with a great lower half weight transfer hip drive to get torque. Okay, but if you can't produce torque with your lower half, the only way you're going to get the ball there is by having a wild front side. So before we get into that, and before we talk about what a good weight transfer looks like from the lower half, I want to talk to you guys about a great opportunity we are having this offseason. We are traveling out to 8 different cities across the United States for 2-day-long quarterback and wide receiver training camps. So the first stop on our camp tour, we already went to Tampa, Florida. We already went to Phoenix, Arizona. Great turnouts for both camps. And now we're coming out to Houston, Newark, New Jersey, Atlanta, Georgia, Columbus, Ohio, Chicago, Illinois, Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, and Los Angeles, California. So if you guys are local to one of those 8 cities and would like to travel out and get some great work in with us, we would absolutely love to have you out to one of our camps. Now, at these camps, again, I wouldn't even really call it a camp. I'd call it more so a clinic, because we are limiting spots to only 10 to 12 quarterbacks and wide receivers, right, per age group. So it's going to be split up into a youth section and a high school college section. We're limiting spots so we could actually coach you guys, because again, at camps, you see it so often. having guys just run through drills. There's no coaching. There's no teaching. I want to actually teach you guys. That's why the camp is 2 days long. It's 4 hours each day, 3 hours of positional work each day, where you're going to get a lot of individualized one-on-one coaching with myself and my staff of coaches. So if this is something you think that you'd get benefit from, you could get better, and you need to improve your skills, check out that very first link in the description below, fellas. We would love to have you out to one of our off-season camps. Like I said, great opportunity for you guys to get better with kids your own age and our entire coaching staff with detailed one-on-one instruction. Let's get back to this video. So now, what we were talking about, right, is we were talking about that release point. Now, again, a lot of guys will feel like they don't have power on this throw because they don't get that hip rotation. So the thing is that you have to get your back hip to drive through and your front hip to open up to be able to get rotation on the ball and power on the ball if you're going to stay disciplined with your front side. Because again, a lot of guys, what they'll do is maybe their base is too wide, their back foot is too wide, but they'll go to drive on the throw and that front hip will lock out. They will not get the rotation that Fields gets. You see how Fields is able to rotate the front hip? You see how the front hip's able to come through and the back hip is coming through before the football? That's great hip rotation. And he's transferring his weight. All of his weight is on his front foot now. He started out with a lot of weight on his back foot, like probably about 70%. And he transferred that weight to the front foot, and that's what got his hip to open up. It's not about just rotating with your hips. It's about transferring weight, and the hip rotation will come naturally because of the weight transfer. Now, that is how we rotate. That's called being a correct rotational athlete. Now, again, like I said, a lot of quarterbacks will have that hip block out. And then what they'll do is when that hip blocks out, they'll try to stay disciplined with their shoulders and disciplined with their hips, and they feel like they have no power on the ball, like they're pushing it because they're not rotating. So then what a lot of guys will resort to doing is because that hip blocks out, well, the only way you're going to get power and be able to rip a 15-yard throw is by swinging the elbow, swinging the shoulder, dipping your head out of there. And all of those movements going this way fly you off the midline, and your release point is affected. So if you guys can get that hip rotation, if you guys can get that weight transfer, the upper body will kind of naturally be easier to correct, and you will have that great front side discipline. It's all about being a rotational athlete from your hips, and the weight transfer will bring the ball through, okay? So I hope that makes sense. If you guys have questions on that, don't hesitate to leave that in the comment section. I respond to all comments, so if you guys have any questions on that, please don't hesitate to ask. Let's watch the thing again, full speed. Great job by Fields keeping weight back, transferring, and having a clean release point for an accurate shot. Okay, so now, how can we be more accurate on the run? That's the next throw that we're going to be looking at. And when you're throwing on the run, fellas, it is so important that you are emphasizing your throwing side foot and the leg that is kicking through. And obviously your kinetic sequence when you throw the ball. So let's watch the thing full speed. So Burrow is making this throw across the field, right? So when he makes this throw across the field, it is very important that, again, a lot of people say that, oh, quote unquote, this is across his body. This is not across your body unless you make it across your body. So we'll talk about why. So when you're throwing on the run, we talked a little bit about it. You want your hips to shoot through. You want your hips to rotate through when you're throwing normally, right? And your shoulders stay loaded, and then your shoulders stay square on the finish. Now, on the run, it's the exact same thing, but instead of like kind of stepping with your front foot and transferring weight to get your front foot down, you step with your throwing side foot. Now, when you step with your throwing side foot, it's all about loading your hips and getting your belly button to the target. Now, you shouldn't get your belly button to the target and open up your shoulders at the same time. You got to have torque. It's got to be like a baseball swing where you keep your shoulders back and the hips go through. So you see what Burrow does is he steps with the throwing side foot, and that shoulder is kind of closed as he's starting to step. That's how we get torque. That's how we're able to get power, because now the hips are going forward, the shoulders staying closed. So now this leg kicking through is what's going to bring the ball through, and I will explain that. But you see how he points his toes somewhat the best he can in the direction of the throw. He does not step towards the sidelines. So many quarterbacks, what they do is like, and again, this is for any throw. This does not have to be an across the field throw. This could be a basic sprint out and you're throwing a 5-yard out. You have to point your throwing side foot and point that toe in the direction of the target, because that's what will get your hips loaded, and that's what will allow you to swing through with this leg a little bit easier and have a more consistent release point, because it all comes down to this release point, fellas. Because what happens is quarterbacks will step to the sideline, all their momentum with their hips go to the sideline, and then they end up short arming it. They end up throwing across their body because everything's going to the sideline. If you can step and point that toe the best you can, get your hips to the target, and then icing on the cake, kick that leg through to where you are kicking and your hips stay square and your shoulders get parallel to the target, that's how we can get the consistent release point, and that's how we can really emphasize the wrist flick, just like throwing from the pocket, to where I can be more consistent and more accurate over the middle. That is textbook right there from Burrow throwing on the run. So make sure, quarterbacks, with our throwing side foot, if you're a lefty, it'd be your left foot. If you're a righty, it'd be your right foot. You want to step with that throwing side foot. That is when you are going to rotate the shoulders back. And then to get the ball to come through, you have to kick through. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to kick through away. You don't want to close off that front hip. You want to kick towards the direction of the throw, keep your hips parallel to the target, shoulders parallel. So now all we have to do is emphasize that wrist flick. And if that sequence is clean, you're rotating the shoulders when you're stepping with the throwing side foot. That's going to give you torque and enough power to be able to make those more difficult throws. Let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Great job here by Burrow rolling out, stepping with that throwing side foot, keeping that shoulder closed, and finishing square to the target. That is the number one thing that you want to do on the run as a quarterback. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave that in the comment section below, or any kind of video feedback, suggestion, things you'd like to see next. We always appreciate it. And again, fellas, if you'd like to come out to one of our 8 off-season camps, we're coming out to Houston, Newark, Atlanta, Columbus, Chicago, Dallas, Nashville, and Los Angeles. Check out that very first link in the description below, fellas. We'd love to have you out. Limited spots as well. Our Newark, New Jersey camp is completely sold out. So those 7 other camps, please don't hesitate to check out that link below. Ask any questions. We will always get back to you. I'll see you guys next time.